This is Julian O'Shea, one of the more fascinating people I've interviewed in my lifetime because he had designed a solar-powered tuk-tuk, was a South Australian recipient of Young Australian of the Year 2014, has his very own YouTube channel with more subscribers than I, and created an emoji that can be found on all your phones.
I made it my mission to go and get the brick symbol put into the official emoji list.
I will admit I may have pronounced his surname incorrectly during this interview, but nonetheless, God Given Talent presents the Talented Peeps podcast. Your most viewed video, and this is the video that the algorithm suggested to me, was Australia's crosswalk buttons. And I really wanted to know, what was the inspiration behind that video?
This one came from a friend actually, who, we make a lot of videos together. He joined me on a trip where we went and fished O-bikes out of the lake. So, he knew I had an interest in kind of urban design, and he suggested it from a kind of technical perspective. So for those that don't know, Australia's got these buttons that you press to cross the road, and they've got a pretty iconic sound. Like if you walk around the streets of Sydney or Melbourne, you'll hear them, just this kind of boop, boop, which is showing people that are blind or have vision impairment where the crosswalk is, where to wait to press the button for the pedestrian crossing. He suggested it from a technical point of view, and as I started to dig into it, I realized that there's, another side of the story. Famously, this is the sound that was sampled as part of the mega best-selling hit Billie Eilish's Bad Guy. So I just thought it'd make a great story that it's an Australian invention. It is uniquely Australian or distinctly Australian, but people don't know that, like people that are from Australia may not realize that this isn't the case everywhere in the world because it just is such a common part of the streetscape. And then, the quirky twist about how it's a multi-Grammy award-winning song.
And the PB5 found its way into the top song of 2019, Billie Eilish's Bad Guy. Listen carefully for this sound.
Did you expect it to go that viral?
I did not. This is really niche stuff. And I think it's both a challenge and an opportunity to answer questions that people didn't have. No one is jumping on YouTube searching, what's the story of these crosswalk buttons? No one is doing that. So it makes my channel kind of hard to find. But when you do and you get prompted by it, then hopefully it hooks you in and you dive down the rabbit hole.
I'm curious, was the Anzac Bicky video the first one you recorded, edited, and published? Or was there a few other ideas that you kind of started but never fulfilled to completion?
I forget which order it worked, but I did make one around the same time that still hasn't been uploaded because I just was not happy with it. It's the story of how I created an emoji. So, how there's emojis on your phone? Yeah. It turns out that anyone can submit one through the official process.
What can you reveal to me now? Or are you going to save it all for that future video?
No, you can have the exclusive emoji. They kind of come from Japan, where they were used in the early days of mobile phones. And these days they're kind of controlled by a group called the Unicode Consortium, which sounds like a lot of kind of dark mystery figures that are pulling the strings on all the emoji in the world. But really what they are is about trying to make the internet more accessible and inclusive. The story behind this one is I was in Nepal and working with a colleague, and he does a lot of building out of traditional materials. And he's invented this amazing contraption where you can take earth and compress it. So make bricks out of compressed earth rather than fired in a kiln. And we're talking how Nepal has kind of lower literacy, but full of mobile phones. There's more than one mobile phone per person. And, they use emoji a lot because, it's quite symbolic. People, crosses language. So we thought, wouldn't it be cool to be able to message how many bricks you need? Wow. But there was no emoji for brick. I made it my mission to go and get the brick symbol put into the official emoji list.
And you made it. Wow.
Yeah, I had to write I don't know what it was, a 14-page document about why it's a valid symbol, how, it's not geographically limited, it's not a trademark, it's not a fad, it's not like people will stop using it in a year, because once it's there forever. It's not offensive, there's a lot of rules you have to follow, I
was doing some background research into you because before YouTube, this actually was the standout point for me. You were the South Australian recipient in 2014 for Young Australian of the Year. You had this ambitious goal of building a movement of engineers to improve the life in some of the world's poorest countries. Did you know that with that ambitious goal of yours that you'd be even eligible for Australian of the Year?
Yeah, like it's a pretty special recognition. There's no doubt about that. It's always a bit of an interesting feeling when you're doing something collaboratively, because of course all these projects are never about one person and then being singled out. But it's really great. Like there has been a shift in my professional time working that these types of projects were pretty rare. Like when I went to university, these were never case studies. It was always about industry and big projects and the like, rather than projects that are there explicitly to improve people's lives. And being able to be part of that, and it actually is a movement. Like there are now academics and people doing this type of work as a thing. So yeah, it's really beautiful recognition, and shout out to all the various and dozens of team members that have been part of it.
One final question that I have for you. It's what's next for Julian O'Shea?
So I've got some fun projects on the go. I'm doing some research at the moment about sustainable vehicles. So I'm really interested in how do we cut our emissions and make cities more sustainable, more beautiful, less congested, cleaner air, more inclusive. So I'm looking a lot at electric mobility. So electric skateboards, and I'm designing some quirky new vehicles as well that kind of go into that mix. Merging solar panels with electric scooters. Once we're allowed out of lockdown, finish those builds, because I've done a lot of the design work, but just need to get into a workshop and then take them on some adventures around the country and around the world.
How can people listening right now find you?
So my YouTube channel is my name, which is Julian O'Shea. But if you just type Unknown Melbourne into YouTube, that's the name of the series, which is kind of what hooks people in. So check it out, and feel free to drop me a line.
To listen to my full interview with Julian, click the link in the description for the unfiltered conversation on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. See you next episode.